Leopard Lounge? Yeah. Wonder. Let's get the word. Wonder why they don't like me, baby. Pride is on me, yeah, I'm clean, lady. Yeah, they testing for the all these motherfucking niggas. I already said I'm queen. I'm finna eat a sensu bean. I'm so skinny, so I guess I'm lean. Young fly nigga with JBG. I want a girl that has a passion. A type of girl that's into fashion. Wanna look at how I'm distracted. Supposed to pick though, it's like a caption. We both know the truth. I wanted you. It was times like this.
Welcome back to the podcast, Señora Vibes by Alicia. And I am here today because, you know what? We are getting ready and gearing up for a really big event, something awesome that's coming to Houston that we're actually setting up for Houston ourselves. And, this podcast has always been about educating and inspiring and sharing what we learn along the way and all those things that we do know how to do and how we can help others learn how to do it as well. So one of the things that I always get questions on is like, how do I create my own podcast? So that is what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about the first inaugural podcast experience event in Houston. And it's a big word, damn it. Wow. And I'm joined by what can I call you, Alice? You're like everything to me right now. Like, I wish I could just take you everywhere you go with me.
Right now, I'm just
you're my brand. You're my coordinator. Yeah, you're my event coordinator, my brand manager, my photographer. So Alice Briscoe is a fabulous influencer. She's a businesswoman. She's an entrepreneur. She's a mama, and we know each other for a few years now. When she visited me at my store, which was not very far from here where we are now. And, we just connected and I saw something in her, a hardworking young lady that I was like, oh, she's got a ton of potential and I cannot wait to kind of meet her and get to know her a little bit more. And we started doing photography. You remember that,
yeah,
Alice? Like we started doing photos. Yeah.
All the outfits.
Yeah. And then you also modeled for me as well at the store. So that was really cool. And what we're going to be talking today is like how to plan a badass conference event experience.
Right. And that's going to be a big one because we're already maybe less than 30 days out from our current event.
Yeah.
So I'm excited and she's excited because we're basically creating a learning experience I would wish somebody would give to me too.
Right. Yeah.
So where do we start?
Yeah. So let's start where did the idea come from? Let's start there, right? I think the idea has been in our minds for a while. I think we've been thinking about like, how do we make something special for other people out there who want to do podcasting or who want to just, share their message with an audience. Some people do influencing, some people do blogging, writing. There's just so many ways to just kind of to convey a message, and audio is one of the best ways, I think, for people to just kind of like grasp. I don't know, it could be a story. Like, I love to hear podcasts. It's one of my favorite things I love to do. And when COVID happened, like, I started mine in March of 2020. So it's already 3.5 years. And this is something that I really love and enjoy, especially when I get to teach you guys how to do something. And so today, Alice and I are going to teach you and going to help you and give you some pointers and some advice and tips on how to create a badass event, because that's something we're really good at. We're both event planners, and we love event planning on top of everything else that we do. I think this is the part that we really enjoy, right, Alice?
Yeah, this is our bread and butter of like making us feel good about something, because I know Alicia loves to like put on an event to where it's like top quality, you enjoy it, and you don't just take away one nugget, you take away like a few.
Right.
And it's worth your while. It's not something that she just puts together to say, hey, I did an event, and then pray somebody show up. No, she's meticulous about it. And with an event, the first thing you want to do is start out with an idea. So that's the first step. That's the idea.
Yeah. And the idea was, let's create something where people can come in and learn about podcasting from other podcasters, right? So one of the ways that we started this whole planning process was like, okay, what is the mission? Number one is to inspire and to educate, right? So we started with that first goal. And so that's where we came to the idea of the TX PODGALS experience. Why experience? Because we want it to be memorable. We want it to be experiential. We want people to come in and experience something, take notes, meet with other panelists, meet other podcasters.
Way more fulfilling than a brunch, but you feel like you went to a conference packed all into one. That's the initial concept that we came up with, to make sure it's not, oh, I'm going to be here for 2 to 3 days. No, you're going to get what you would from 2 to 3 days at a conference here with an experience with us from 11 to 2, so less than 4 hours. You'd get the same amount of jewels from this experience.
A bunch of gems. And it's going to be October 7th, so that's the day we've already decided. We're going to have our, and then we went on to look for a location. I think that was one of the first things that we wanted to do. And we looked at Pier Space, we looked at restaurants, we looked at warehouses, right?
Location.
And one of the biggest pet peeves that I have when I go to events or conferences is like there's never enough parking. And so when we were looking around, I said it's so essential that there's a lot of parking. It
Especially
has to be easy
Houston.
To get in and out. And we talked about, well, it's upstairs, it's downstairs. I wanted something that was on the first floor where we don't have to drag anything up some elevator, so it needed to be that. So those are things to consider when you're inviting and you're planning your own event. Like, think about, are your guests going to want to be, parking a half a mile away? Are your vendors going to have a hard time coming in and out and bringing in their things?
I love the venue you picked out, the Cuvée Collective.
Yeah.
The parking space. And not only that, it's actually very handicap accessible versus some places in Houston. Like, even the restrooms are accessible. So I love that about that venue.
I do too. So how did I find the Cuvée Collective? So my husband is a student of wine, and one of his first class teachers is Jeannie, and Jeannie owns the Cuvée Collective over here in West Houston. So it's a really beautiful space. I had gone to their big opening, and when I started thinking of venues, I thought, you know what, Jeannie's space might be perfect because it's also a warehouse, right?
Beyond perfect.
And it's gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful designed place. It's got so much natural light, which is so important for all of our influencers that are coming and want to do photography.
If you don't make it to this event, you'll regret it, because she has some exclusive rooms she's letting us in, like the Marie Antoinette room, and it's styled so beautifully.
Yeah, so she's got great taste, and not only that, but it's female owned. So we always want to support small business and support female owned businesses. And she's somebody that also supports other females in wine and teaching in so many different ways. And so one other thing you want to consider is how many guests are you going to have, right? So you've got to think about how many. So if you think, okay, maybe 50, for sure the space fits 50 or 60. Just sort of depends on what your thought process is in that. So you have to consider how many guests you're wanting to invite, and then the location needs to be able to accommodate. And the parking as well. You can't remember
it's all about
that.
Accommodations.
So I think another thing you want to consider is, what is your budget? Do you even have a budget? And if you do have a budget, how much is it? And how are you going to meet those budget requirements, right?
Which brings into play vendors.
Yes.
Vendors kind of make it possible for you to do that if you don't have access to sponsors.
Right.
Which sponsors usually require at least 3 months out. You can't just, willy-nilly say, I want an event next week and I want sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you know people. And if you know people, some people do know people.
Yeah.
Then, that can happen. But if you're not that person, then you need to plan it out accordingly, maybe 3 months out.
And definitely overestimate your budget, because you'll discover that little by little things start adding up, and you'll start thinking, okay, so how much am I going to pay for food? How much will I pay for beverages, decorations? How much entertainment? And if I'm willing to pay for that entertainment, what can we do for entertainment? The staff. There's a staff in there too, as well as, photographers, videographers, your audio people, if you're needing audio, anything that needs to be paid, or somebody that's going to provide a service or a product, that's something you need to calculate all of that from the very beginning. And most of the time you kind of guesstimate what that's going to cost, and then little by little you start to look at your budget, and then you start to think, okay, now we need to definitely, where can we bring in? So definitely start thinking about that. The next thing that we did was we created a media kit because we wanted to be able to start sending that kit out to sponsors, vendors, panelists, people who were going to be participating.
Yeah, and even though it's the first event, you make it as though it's been happening for 10 years. You make it look really nice, and you present it well the first time, so we leave a lasting impression on whoever puts eyes on it.
Absolutely.
To be like, I want to be a part of that next year for sure.
Yeah, and those of you that are thinking about planning an event or putting something together, please don't do basic because people will talk shit about your basic event. Like, don't do that. If you're going to do something, do it right and go all the way. Like, go for it. It's a lot of work, and definitely I can't do this conference without Alice, and I can't do it without Alicia Brownell, who's doing some of our copy, and she's putting out a press release. There's a team that goes along with it. So start finding people that you can work with as a team and bring them on so that everybody has like a role and a responsibility as well, right?
Yeah, and then also, find collaborators if you can. If you don't, have to work alone, then go ahead and find somebody who wants the same mission as you. Like, that's the why. Why are you doing this event? Like, there are other people that probably want to do it with you. Mm-hmm. So you can reach out and have them help you with it.
Right. And that's one of the criteria, like for the venue, that I think is important for people to consider when they're planning an event. Like, how bougie do you want it to be? Or how fancy, or how basic or regular? I mean, it could be anything.
I think everybody wants it to be that way, but they don't think about certain aspects as much.
Like
so
what?
Like, for example, your location. If you don't have signage, how do you expect people to know that the turn into the drive-thru is there? How do you expect anybody to know? I like logistics when it comes to being a guest at somebody else's event. I want to know where it is before I go.
It should also be on the GPS, on the Google Maps, right?
Google Maps,
they need to have a website. A website is so important because people are going to immediately go to their website and look them up.
Right.
An Instagram account is great if these places have an Instagram account.
I love to see an event and then have in mind where I'm going, and I know exactly where to go, and then I get to enjoy it more because I'm like, okay, well, now I'm here, and now I have ample parking to choose from.
Yeah.
And then once you get in, the next question is the experience.
Yeah.
Like, what are you giving your guests?
What are we giving our guests? So for sure, immediately when they walk into your event, your registration table needs to be welcoming. It needs to be organized. It should be ready to go before the event even starts.
Right.
Like, that is another pet peeve of mine, when people are still setting up their registration and it's like the event already started. That's so not cool.
Mine is when you're checking in, and there's two different forms of checking in.
Oh.
Like, I want you to just have one way for everybody to check in.
And Eventbrite has been a great source for us, a great resource for us, because it also gives you a printout before the event so that you can just check people off there, and you'll see who's already paid and who's general admission or who's VIP. And it makes it also good to gather leads as well, right?
Yeah. You want to keep that information to keep them informed about the next event.
Yeah, for sure. So start thinking about that, and the experience is the next thing. So what experience did we want to give the people for October 7th? We talked about a panel.
Yeah, a panel live podcast with basically no bars are being held. Everybody is being pretty open about how to start your own podcast. There's nobody saying, oh, I can't tell you what mic I use. I can't tell you what software I use. No, they're going to answer those questions and help you out.
Right. I think that's just so important. And so it's crucial that when you start to think about the experience, you start to think about, what if you were a guest, what would you like to see? Who would you like to hear about? So then it came down to, let's find our panelists. And so we put a call out on Instagram, and we said, hey, we are doing an event. It's a podcasters event. It's educational. It's inspirational. We're looking for panelists. And we
landed some amazing panelists.
We sure did. And so Alice created a great Google form for people to just put in their information. A lot of their contact information was on there. Requests for their links, for their websites, whatever else they were going to be sharing for the podcast as a panelist. And then we went through it because we wanted to make sure that the panelists were people that were actually podcasters and experienced, and then just published, a few episodes that actually have consistency.
No, yeah, all of them are well over 3 years in to the podcast game, and they have polished websites or consistent episodes.
Yep.
So nobody on this panelist is a newbie.
Right. So then we thought about that. And then what do they need? What do the panelists needs? So we need them to have audio visual needs met. So now we have our audio visual person, who's Jamal.
Hey, Jamal.
And yeah, Jamal has been doing work with us for a long time as well. And he's the person that I go to for all of my audio setup. And, he does the producing here. And so for sure, we started to think, what does Jamal need? So Jamal is setting all of that up. He's creating a budget for what he needs for the event. If we need to rent microphones, if we need to get SD cards, what do we need for that day? So that's his job. Again, find people that can be a part of your team and you can delegate the different roles. And as the leader of the group, I just check in with everybody at least twice a week to make sure everybody's, okay, on task. And then if they need anything else from me, that's what I do. And the other thing as the hostess is one thing that I do a lot too is just go out there and ask for money and for sponsorships. And it's something that is not easy for me because I'm like, oh no, I don't want to keep asking people or the same person. I don't want to keep asking them again. And, so that kind of thing is difficult for me, but I'm kind of getting better at it, I think.
Out of your head. Yeah.
I'll get on my phone. I'm like, oh, let me send the text to this person. They have that. Let's see if they'll do it.
To using your resources
exactly
for this event. You also don't have to buy everything. If you can DIY it with ample enough time, go for it.
Yeah. That's
versus
true.
Paying out of pocket if you can do it yourself.
Yeah, we were just talking about that because we were like, oh gosh, a step and repeat is so expensive. And then all of a sudden, Alice is like, hey, let's just do logos on a projector. And I think that brings in the technology and it's super cool and awesome. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a projector.
Everybody's see it clearly.
And then as organizers, we don't have that cost. We just have to set it up the day before.
Get innovative.
Right. And then after that, we ask the panelists to send us their information. We have one email that everybody uses so that we can all go in there. We create event folders in our Google Drive so that everything goes into one folder and only the organizers or the planners have access to it. So it's either photos, it's copy. What else do we have in there?
Forms. We have a copy for the website, which is also really important.
And so it's super cool because we also created a form for vendors. So we said, hey, vendors, come on down.
Sold that out easily.
That's sold out like literally within 2 or 3 days. Natalia Castillo, our skincare expert, will be there. Her Sweet Studio, she does permanent jewelry, which is interesting because it's actually attached to your body.
I'm excited about that.
I'm interested in that too. Honeybee's Organizing Solutions. She does organizing.
I love organizing.
I know. Honeybee's Organizing. VSME. Is that how VSME?
It's like a play on words, like envious, like NVS.
NVSME. Oh, okay. It's a
Gotcha.
Girl, you're good. Bow Empowerment. This is a coach, and she's a self-love coach. She teaches you how to love yourself and how to self-care. Yeah, her stuff is really cool.
Very encouraging.
So she's going to have things there, and she's a wonderful motivator as well. And then we have our panelist, Melissa Chavez. She has After 50.
Past Level 50.
Past Level 50.
With Mel.
Crystal Prophet. She has the Prophet podcast. Yvette and Giovanna, they do the YG collaborations and they do a podcast on relationships. Laura, by the way, she has a post-narc podcast because it's about narcissism.
Yeah,
just
living with the
interesting.
Narcissistic person.
I know, which is such an interesting topic.
It's very niche.
I know, very cool. So we talk about, after that, we've got all those details. We've already secured our panelists. We've secured our vendors. We're super excited about that. We have talked food and wine. We're going to be getting sponsors for that. We've already got our sponsor for our wine and drinks. Odyssey Title has been amazing and coming through for us in that sense. So that's wonderful. We also are getting our food through Papa John's. That's also another sponsor, which is fabulous because we do love our Papa John's.
Well, while we're talking about sponsors,
yes,
I'll just mention the Cuvée Collective, Victoria Garcia Studios, and Seasworthy, just real quick.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because they are definitely great sponsors and people that we definitely. So let's add to the experience. Victoria Garcia is going to be having a headshot
Oh, yeah, which I think is very necessary. If you're starting a podcast, you need a proper headshot because when you're sending graphics to designers and to the website, you want something that looks polished across the board, or even just to have on LinkedIn. You need a proper headshot.
Yep. I think it's so important. It looks so professional too. If you're serious about what you're doing, then definitely be serious about your look and your brand. It's so important. Have that website that pops and looks good and is important. Like if you're going to be doing something, you know you're going to take an investment. You're going to have to invest in it and pay money.
And then when you're a part of events like this, you also want to have a nice headshot. So like the next time you're at an event, you can get your headshot here at our event, and then you'll have this polished headshot.
That's right. And then we talked about, okay, so how do you pay for all of this stuff? So there's different ways, right? We can do sponsors. We can find sponsors. We can use vendors who can also pay a small fee. Ticket sales is one of the best ways. Right. And so we go through Eventbrite to sell the tickets.
And so we had to just adjust that today to make sure that we were accommodating our VIPs and then make sure the general admission was clear cut on what they're getting.
Right. Right, because I think it's so important that you make it as clear. And this is something Alice has been so good in helping me, because I tend to just go boom, 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 boom. And then she's like, you forgot to put this, you forgot to put that. So it's always good to just keep in mind that you want to be as clear and as concise as possible, because the people that are reading your event or reading about your event want to know exactly what's going on. Have all those details. The agenda needs to be, and that's something that Alice also said, hey, we really need to work on this agenda and make sure that we really give details of what's going on, because it's important.
Yeah, we're trying to pack out this 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. event. So it's like, I don't want any question about where anybody should be. And we can all follow the plan accordingly, and everybody can get the most out of this experience.
Yep, I agree with you. So that's what we've been working on. Again, you also have to think about how you're going to promote it, the marketing of it. That's another part. That's another crucial component of it, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that too. Actually, we went down this whole list, didn't we?
We did. Well, that's why we're talking about it, because we're helping people plan a great event. Right. So it's promotion. We're doing social media, Facebook, events. What else are we doing?
So you got to also think about your local groups that would want to participate in the event. And so today we spent time customizing promo codes for certain groups that we feel would benefit from this experience.
Right. I think that's also very important to talk about, because we forget that people like to come with other friends, and that's a great way for them to come with somebody else, is just to give a group a promo code, and that way they can come and invite their friends to join.
Right.
So that's also the marketing. We also talk a lot about it. We've been networking a lot,
and
telling people.
Cross-promotion across our vendors and panelists. That's another key aspect, is making sure everyone involved is posting, because that gets you across to their audiences too, that may not have known about you.
Very true. And so the other things that we consider is, what are we going to need for the day of the event? And so we talk about like a registration table. We need somebody to volunteer for that. We need somebody that's going to do photography, video for us, so that we have that documentation as well, because it'll help us promote the event for next year as well. Right. So that's important. And finding a videographer, Unified Atlantic is going to be our videographer for that day. And so, you have to consider like the future as well. Like, what can you reuse and apply for another event, right?
Yeah, I think that's very smart.
And that's another way of also conserving some of your resources as well. And so,
which, you did earlier too. She thought back to something she may have to add to the event, and she's like, "Oh wait, I have some of that." And I'm like, "That's perfect. We can make use of it."
Yes, exactly. So there's that, and then at the event, have fun. I'll be host a scene and welcoming everybody into the event, and Alice will be putting out fires all day, because I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. You're doing that. But definitely having that day of figuring out when we set up, how we're going to take everything down, having the people to come in and volunteer. Usually I'll ask friends to come and help set up and take down. That's always something to consider and to think about. And then have a strategy in how you're going to set up the day of and talk about it with your team ahead of time.
Not a lot of event spaces allow you to set up before the time you've allocated. So you have to take that into consideration about what you're creating and bringing in. It has to be ready by the time your guests arrive.
Yeah, exactly. Everything needs to be ready by the time they're coming. And I would say 30 minutes before they show up. Like, don't be running around. Yeah, definitely. 5 minutes before, don't do that, because it's just so not cool, and people can tell that you don't prepared. Have it together and prepared. So it doesn't look good on you, especially if you're wanting to host something special and unique that you want it to continue for years. Your reputation will precede you. And there's events that I don't go to anymore because they're just so disorganized that I just refuse to pay the money. And our tickets are $25 general admission,
Very
and then
affordable.
$50 for VIP. And the VIP people get one-on-one sessions with seasoned podcasters. So you're going to get to ask one-on-one questions of those panelists, of the people that are going to be experts. Doesn't get any better than that. It's a great deal.
Which speaks to the price point and who your audience is. Because like we were talking about earlier, the group of women that podcast in Houston is very low. Like 29% of women in Texas are podcasting. That's a slow, like very low number considering we're half of the listeners.
Right. Exactly.
So we're trying to get you started with this experience.
Yes. So that's why it's important for us to just share with you some of those tips and some of those ideas that can help you, and some strategies that can help you when you plan your own event. But at the same time, invite you to come to Houston, come to our event October 7th, 11 to 2 at the Cuvée Collective. You can find all that information on Eventbrite. You can also go to aliciaelatasi.com, and there's an events tab on there with all of our information as well. You'll see who's our vendors. You'll see who's our panelists, what we're going to be talking about. It's a wonderful experience. It's an educational, inspirational place for you to even come and network. Even if you don't want to be a podcaster, even if you're not even interested in podcasting, come and network with fabulous, amazing people.
No, yeah, that and the fact that we have other sessions that are geared towards pretty much anybody that's an influencer, blogger. If you have a following you're trying to convert, you're more than welcome to come, because there are going to be moments that are just for you in general.
That's right. Thank you, Alice.
No problem.
I can't do this without you. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, man, I love to be a part of these experiences.
How did you like podcasting right now?
This is fun. This is fun. This
Let's
is my
do
first
more.
time.
Let's do more.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. And check it out and let us know what you think. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know. But more details will be in the description. Bye.
Bye.